Trita Parsi, the co-founder and executive vice president of the Quincy Institute for Responsible Statecraft. Trita is also the founder and former president of the National Iranian-American Council. Trita, thank you so much for your time. I mean, Rishi Sunak may say that the priority is international shipping. Other nations will be concerned about this becoming the wider regional conflict that everyone was fearing. Are we there now?
We definitely are a significant step closer to it. And I think it is important to point out that all peaceful diplomatic options to stop the attacks against shipping by the Houthis were not exhausted, particularly the option of actually going for a ceasefire in Gaza. During the 6 days in November in which there was a ceasefire, all attacks by Iraqi militias against U.S. forces stopped. Attacks by the Houthis dropped significantly. In fact, we can only count one attack that with confidence can be attributed to the Houthis. So there was another way of stopping these attacks that would have also had other positive implications, such as releasing all of the Israeli hostages. Instead, the United States and UK decided to essentially pursue a strategy in which you escalate in order to de-escalate. And most countries, I think, fear that this is going to create the exact opposite outcome.
What do you think the reaction in Tehran is going to be, Trita, and therefore how the Houthis react?
I think the Iranians have their top priority in making sure that they themselves do not get dragged into this war. They are going to continue to support the Houthis, but I don't think that there's any likelihood of the Iranians getting themselves involved in this war as a result of these strikes. The Houthis, however, will most likely strike back. And the question is, will they go after ships, or would they potentially go after some of the countries who were involved in this attack against Yemen, including, of course, Bahrain, who is in the neighborhood, and the Houthis probably have the missile capability of striking Bahrain.
Is it possible that the Americans and the British, with airstrikes alone, can reduce the capacity of the Houthis enough for them not to be as much of a threat as is feared? Because the Saudis will be wondering what's going to happen next to them as well.
Of course. I find it unlikely. Temporarily, tactically, there's probably going to be a degrading of their capabilities, but the problem in and of itself will not go away, and with it will also come other forms of escalation risks. So the idea that this is some sort of a safe and effective way of resolving the problem is highly questionable. Moreover, over time, we have seen that even if they're set back technologically, militarily for a short period of time, in the longer run, it only tends to intensify their intent and their demand for the type of capabilities that will be even more effective than what they have right now.
Trita, when Antony Blinken was visiting all these multiple countries across the Middle East over the past few days, he must have spoken to every single leader that he was in a room with about the possibility of these strikes. The Americans must have seen it coming. This kind of stuff doesn't happen just off the cuff, does it? What would they have been telling Blinken? Don't do it, or if you see fit, do as you wish?
I'm not so sure that Blinken necessarily shared those plans with those countries. But I think from all of the countries in the region, with the exception of Saudi Arabia and the UAE, the message most likely would very clearly have been, don't do it. And in fact, go for a ceasefire. With Saudi Arabia and the UAE, the story is a bit different. Of course, the Saudis are still in an conflict with the Houthis, and they want more American support for it. But at the same time, the Saudis do have a ceasefire with the Houthis. And I think it's critical for them to make sure that that ceasefire remains, because the Saudi priority right now is their economic program, not getting dragged back into a war in Yemen. That's part of the reason why the Saudis were officially, at least, not part of the coalition that the U.S. put together.
Yeah, absolutely. Trita Parsi, thank you so much indeed.